and welcome home, you beautiful and greasy bastards. We're happy that you're back. This is Finding Home, where we're open, vulnerable, and shameless about all the beautiful God damn it. The topics in our beautiful little wooden bowl. I am Seth Gorman.
Hey guys, I'm Diego.
It's Annalise.
Your boy Nikki P.
And today we have a very special guest on. Introduce yourself, good sir.
What up, you guys? My name is Max. That's all I got.
Do you want to share your last name?
Oh, Battaglia. I'm sorry. My name is Max Battaglia.
You trying to sell yourself in the world?
I'm like Cher, actually. You can just call me Max.
There's many of me out there.
We got Mad Max in the room. Awesome. Well, we're glad you guys are back. If you've been listening this far, it means you know that this is the 5th episode of Finding Home. We got a lot of conversations that we have yet to have. But we got to pull some stuff out of the bowl. So who wants to be... let's let Max do it today. Let's let Max pull the topic out of the bowl.
You gotta look away.
I'm sorry. I was staring directly into the bowl.
Hey, you can't look. It's got to be a secret.
Yeah, I'm not looking in the bowl.
Mix it around.
Oh, yeah. I'll put one from the bottom. The bottom ones are the best. Okay. Are you ready? All right. Ecosystem sustainability.
Hot damn.
Okay. I'm about it.
We were kind of talking about this earlier today.
Ecosystem sustainability.
Ecosystem sustainability. Is our ecosystem sustainable right now?
I guess that all comes down to the definition of what do you consider stable, what do you consider unstable. Technically, nature is purely chaos, just rapidly amassing in different situations, but
Yeah.
it's,
But together it is all balanced.
yeah,
as one.
exactly. So a bunch of chaos, but like technically it's the most stable thing that we have. So what is your definition of stable?
What's stable? What's sustainable?
Yeah.
What's the difference between stable and sustainable?
Sustainable is also a perception too, because how long do you? It's a series of looking at time as well. So how long are you looking to be sustainable? Because the time limit by which you're sustaining something is the determining factor by if it's going to be something that is sustainable and if it's possible. Like looking at the way that when I think of environmental sustainability, I think of just like the human usage of resources on this planet to give ourselves life. And at the current rate at which we're using them, there is a very good argument in the scientific literature that shows that we cannot sustain how we've been using the planet indefinitely. Like some people say 50 years, some people say 100 years, some people say we got enough oil, it'll last us 300 more years. Everybody's reading a different paper, everybody has a different opinion. But, environmental sustainability is a hard one to talk about, and it's a hard one to talk about straight off the top of your head too, because this is the type of conversation that requires like you bringing in peer-reviewed studies, you showing what you've been researching, what you've been talking about. Right. But there is benefit to talking about it off the cuff. Maybe we'll be more on the philosophical side because we don't have the data in front of us, but I still think it's an important conversation to have.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that there's a lot of different opinions when it comes to environmental, like how you're just talking about when it comes to environmental sustainability. I guess it's kind of funny. I always think of like the definition, like so environmental sustainability off the top of my head. I'm just like, all right, what does that even fucking mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
well, did we say environmental sustainability or is it ecosystem sustainability?
I don't know.
I think it was ecosystem.
Ecosystem sustainability.
Right.
Ecosystem.
So when you think of an ecosystem, there are macro and micro ecosystems, and so we were
just talking about this today. Moss.
The vivariums that I make. Yeah, like
yes.
My goal is to try to create these small enclosed ecosystem environments.
Terrariums all day. Why has no one corrected
Yeah, the
me?
difference between really a vivarium and a terrarium. A terrarium is typically open to the air. Vivarium's a closed system.
Gotcha.
And that's really the difference.
So a vivarium system, it can last. So that's a sustainable. Well, I guess if you count 10 years sustainable, because you don't add water, you don't add anything to it. You seal it off and leave it, right?
Yeah, but and that's if you're being extreme about it and you're really wanting to see. But you can just keep a lid on and have a little dropper, give it some water every once in a while, and for the bioactive part, you can drop some autumn leaves in there, some dead leaves. You can drop a small piece of fruit in there just to give some sort of nutrient that the bioactive fauna can break down. Because eventually the problem that you see in vivariums is that if, say you know what roly-polies are, right? Everybody knows what roly-polies are. Well, roly-polies are a type of isopod, yeah. And there's a bunch of different kinds.
Not the show, remember Roly-Poly-Oly?
Roly-Poly-Oly?
What was that?
Yeah,
So I remember Roly-Poly. It was so old, dude. That was way back.
That's not me.
See, that's the time difference between us and them. So Roly-Poly-Oly fucking-peered before they showed up and watched it.
22.
It was like 1 year.
So that's like 2 or 3 years.
It was a cartoon.
It was just some kid
It was
show.
a really weird cartoon.
Yeah.
Everything was
What,
round.
though? I
It was
need
so
to
weird.
know.
It's like a family. It's like
know,
a.
you can probably-
It's like a sitcom cartoon.
Yeah, you can Google it. It was strange. Things were strange in the 90s, man.
Weird, yeah.
But
90s cartoons are the best.
for the vivariums, if you put those in there, or terrarium or whatever, eventually they're going to run out of dead matter to eat, and they're going to start eating the live plants because they want to sustain their populations. Because they'll come to a population limit. Like isopods are really good at maintaining a population that is sustainable for themselves. But they always go past the point of return before they get back to that place. And by that time, they've like demolished all the plants you put in there. Yeah. And so like that's kind of what we're doing to the planet too, is we're just hungry and consuming. And it's not that that's bad, because some people are very regulated in how they consume, but it's just there's 7 billion of us, 8 billion of us and counting that are doing the same thing every day, and you can only put shit in so many places before there's shit in your food, for your eating where you're shitting, because there's no space anywhere else. Like,
And that's kind of literally what's happening on a global scale.
Yeah, literally, if you walk through downtown Denver, you'll find a turd on the street. I guarantee it. Same with walking through LA or any of these large metropolitan areas. Like these are the first little pockets of looking at what it will look like if we continue to just keep repopulating and living longer. Because the longer that you live, like the death rate's got to be higher. Like, I'm not saying people should go out and kill each other, but like we're just getting good at not dying.
Well, and that's an argument that could be said about COVID-19 coming through too, because it's when a herd gets too big in the wild, say a herd of deer gets too big, what happens? It catches a disease and it thins out.
Like CWD, that's what's going on right now.
Exactly.
So from the beginning, I was gonna say, like, sustainability. It all comes down to like what we want as a government. Like, we don't just. Sorry, I don't mean to be a dick by doing this. I just do it unfocused.
No, I do it all the time.
Yeah, like the government kind of chooses how, like, we don't. I feel like a lot of people don't think about like how they want to shape us. Like, they chose, once we found the technology, not necessarily them, but the people who brought it to them, that like we could produce mass people, but to do that, like, there's things that can keep us alive, but our food's bad. There's a lot of things that we all know are bad just because of the way the world is. So like, are you guys happy about that, or do you wish it would have went a different way? Yeah. Do you wish that it would have went like less like 30% of the population wasn't here and we did things more naturally and we were more healthy? Well, but it's like more living like community wise. You have to help each other.
That's a whole different universe. Because I feel like if that was a reality that humans could have had, humans would have had it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because I genuinely do think that humans are trying to do the best that they can on this earth. I just think they're really fucking bad at it.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of a young species that's coming up and is just kind of literally eating itself to oblivion right now until it figures its shit out. But we have a few
young species
million more years of evolution before we get that shit together.
Yeah, man. You know? Well, and just talking about the type of communities that you're thinking of, actually there's two things I want to point out. The first thing is, like, when you say government, you have to be careful just saying government, because government consists of a lot of branches, and there are people that I've met that are in government that are actually very hardworking people to get certain initiatives done that are very good, especially environmental ones. Like, meeting people that are passionate in the environmental sector and also get into politics at a small level. Totally. Like, they're very passionate people, and they get a lot done, and they listen. The problem is when you get to the places where the decisions are made, it's less about giving a fuck about certain problems, and it's more about who's going to pay me more money and help me keep my position. Yeah, that's what our problem is right now, and that's what we need to fix in our government. And I feel like if we fix those types of things, everything will start to get a little bit better. But back to the point, because I don't want to talk about government shit. So like, let's go back to having a community. Mm-hmm. Having a community of people, like, I forgot what the number was, but there was a number that a certain researcher gave. And the maximum population you can have in one tribe is 150 people before you sort of get some problems. And it's hard to have that many tribes of people with 350 million people and counting alone in the United States. And then you have smaller countries with billions of people. And it's just like, where we are past that point, unless there's a significant decline, or if you can just find yourself a dope group of 100 people that take care of each other. Like, you can have that, but you gotta work to have that.
Right.
You gotta be the kind of person that should be there too.
Well, and it's kind of one of those things where it's like, we are right. We are living in these massive communities that are on a scale that's unprecedented. Mm-hmm. But if you really look at those communities, they are broken up into smaller factions. They're broken up into neighborhoods, right? Mm-hmm. And it's kind of funny because I in my neighborhood personally, I've seen some changes happening where people are kind of reaching out to each other a little bit more.
How well do you know your neighbors?
What's that?
How well do you know your neighbors?
Like, not well. Like, not well at all. Like,
people that live 100 feet from you? Yeah.
Exactly. But what I'm saying is that, at least in my neighborhood, I've been noticing a change where people are actually trying to get to know each other a little bit better. Right. And people are kind of trying to reach out a little bit right now, because it's like, we've all been closed off in our homes. Mm-hmm. And the most that a lot of these people have seen, the most people they've ever seen, is their neighbors taking out the trash once a fucking week.
Yeah.
You know, and like, that's the reality for a lot of people right now. And I think it is kind of turning people into a little bit more of a get your small community together within your larger one and do something with that, you know. And that's something that I think is going to be the future for sustainability. We're going to have to stop sectioning ourselves out into millions of people and start sectioning ourselves out into like tens.
I agree.
Maybe 100, you know, in your neighborhood. Throw a block party. Like, people don't fucking throw block parties and shit anymore.
Well, I think
that's
just
kind of like the thing.
Well, if whatever community you're in learns how to just take care of each other.
COVID hit.
Like,
the last time we were a block.
Yeah. Oh shit.
Florida.
Yeah. So if you do have a small community and that community is good and that community takes care of one another, then it's not going to be hard for you as a community to help take care of another community, and then that community and it ripples out.
It ripples out.
But like, it's okay to have a little bit of tribal divide as long as that's the initiative and the goal. But we live in a chaotic world, man, and there's people who go through circumstances growing up, their wiring's a little bit off, and they sometimes are bad characters. And bad characters with enough charisma can create bad groups, and one bad group can fuck everything up.
Well said. What I was going to say is when I said government, I didn't mean the government as a whole. I mean, like, the people, like, who you were, I agree with you, the people who make the decisions at the end.
You mean any entity that governs over us?
Yes, like that.
Right.
Like, the people who make the decisions when it comes to money.
Yeah.
Because I agree with what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying, we are going to become more community-based as neighbors, because I noticed that when I was living at my mom's when Corona started, and here, the neighbors were becoming more friendly, even in the gated community where I lived, where they didn't even really like my family for stupid reasons. But here, I smoke with my neighbor all the time. They're really friendly. Their dog comes over sometimes, and we are seeing more of that because it's like, damn, they are my neighbor. Might as well get to know them. The world's shut down.
Yeah, exactly.
We've been on this path for like 10 years, but that's another story.
I don't know. I love seeing more communities come together. You know, and it's hard to do that because, well, actually, here in Fort Collins is pretty sweet. Before, you know, pre-COVID times when we had booming music scene.
Haven't experienced it.
And like, damn, dude, I can't wait for it to come back, because when it comes back, this city slaps. I mean, it is like something to do every single night of the week, and most times it's free. You know, you just go out and have fun, and it is like Fort Collins. It definitely has a community. I think it's just totally shredded.
I just want open mics to come back, man. Open mics are so fun,
dude. Avocado's number. Were you ever there?
No, I moved here last August.
Yeah,
so I moved here during
last September. Yeah.
Oh shit. We moved here middle of
pandemic.
Damn.
No, we'll enjoy it when it opens back up, because we'll catch it on the big wave of people going back, which will be cool. Like, it'll be new for us.
Dope bucket down, dude. I tell you what, when you'll see.
I haven't been out in been out in 15 months, like on like not like a toxic schedule, but like on a cool schedule where you go out to the bar, and I miss going to see music and like just fucking with people.
Yeah.
Dude, like, all right. So here's like a good.
And it's healthy. We don't talk about that. Not to interrupt you, it's like,
no,
there's problems, sure, with our immune systems because of this, I guess, or people who catch it. It does develop weird, but I think ultimately, like, you know, the sexual assault rate is up, suicide rate's up. So, like, there's other factors that aren't talked about as much.
Yeah, definitely.
People's like, their confidence of socialization has gone down, honestly. You can feel it in the air.
Yeah.
No, I just thought that's really funny you said it just like that. Because
people have had experiences. One more thing, I'm sorry. The last thing is like, well, I had one during COVID where some girl started screaming at me because I was like too close to her, and I didn't want to talk to people for like 2 months. Not like I was talking to my homies, but I was like, damn, people are weird as hell right now. Like I wasn't that bugged about it, but I was very turned off from socializing because she was like, ah, and I was like, dude,
wow, that's an intense reaction.
But she could have had some bullshit. Who knows?
Well, I don't know. It's funny that you said that people are feeling like less confident socially right now because that's what my friend said. I was talking to her on the phone right before I came over here, and I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of an awkward phone conversation, and I can talk pretty well, you know. And so it's just kind of awkward. And she goes, "Man, I feel like my social skills have really taken a hit," you know. And I just laughed. I was like, "No, you're cool. Like it's all good." And she goes, "No, for real, but I just haven't talked to somebody like on the phone in so long, or just face to face, or anything like that. Like she's just been quarantined, just in her house, like so long that she kind of forgot how to have a normal conversation."
And that's go ahead.
I was just gonna say people have become very independent, and a lot of I want to say new life. A lot of self-realizations kind of came from COVID, and I think it was almost I want to say needed in the nicest way possible. Like sorry to anyone that lost their loved one. I'm just talking about bigger picture, grand scheme of things, everything happens for a reason. I think it did a lot just to boost the human race in terms of creativity, knowledge, awareness, huge level of awareness coming up with all the elections and everything like that. People are becoming a lot more just conscious. Wait, what the hell is going on?
You could agree.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No.
I was gonna say, with that awareness comes a lot of information.
Yeah.
A lot of information that you don't necessarily know is true.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a lot of.
It's just the act of questioning.
Yeah.
In total, has.
I see both your sides.
People have discovered new talents, new careers, completely changed their lives during COVID. Mm-hmm. A lot of families. Realized they didn't like each other and being around each other all the time. People got divorced.
Well,
I had a lot of those experiences.
And that's
a lot of people fell in love.
They did.
It's a huge just transition. But
I had a crazy one a week before. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good, bro.
A week before COVID even hit, I was honestly doing shit, and I just went home, and I made amends with the tension me and my mother had with each other. Nice. And I became a beast in athletically. I got that part of myself back because I've always been really social. Even when I'm in a weird spot in my life, I'll go out and be social, but I couldn't do that anymore. So I had to learn how to be with Nick, Yeah. And that is you were saying, as a population, those are the benefits from COVID. And also since we're talking about the environment has prospered a lot from COVID. From us not freaking being in this those big cities that produce so much bad air that go beyond their own place, New York, Miami. Well, Miami's never mind.
Boundaries are fucking fictional.
Florida. Dude, shout out to my hometown. Nothing is stopped in Florida, of course. The mask regulation was never real there.
Speaking of sustainability, groundwater does not know state lines. So even if your state has a lot of fucking water and you're using it plentifully, you're probably stealing it from somewhere else. This was a fucked up thing I learned. So groundwater, we get most of the water that we drink in the United States that's potable from groundwater, from springs, from artisans, aquifers, all of them. We get them from all of those things. So a couple things have happened. You remember that big flood in Houston a couple years back? When all of Houston got flooded over and people died and everything?
Yeah.
Remember that shit?
I do remember that
came
crazy.
from, I think it was a hurricane or something that came through. The reason that happened was because the Ogallala Aquifer, which we drink from here in Colorado, the Ogallala, that has been depleted so much, it subsided the entire landscape of Houston by 40 feet. And it dropped it.
40 feet?
By 40 feet. And that's how the water flooded through and came in. Because it's been subsided. No. So Houston, unless they set up, which they probably are setting up, channelers to get the water out from now on, but you can't bring that back up. Houston's now subsided, so if a hurricane like that comes through the same way again, it'll get flooded again. Because and that's what happened. Because the crust as we know it is like a sponge, and so if you take the water out, it's going to collapse in on itself because it's just a little pump, right? And so we take water for granted for sure, and on coastal states you're starting to have trouble by bringing in saline water because you're pulling the fresh water out and the salt water from the ocean's pulling in. So you're having places where they have to shut down wells because it's all just salt water now, and so it's just it's pulling in, and it's very hard to get drinkable water back after you fuck with it. because it takes a while. There's a lot of filtration process and all that it has to go through to be clean, drinkable water for us. Sustainability, fucking sustainability. Go back to where you were. I just thought about that when you were talking.
I love that you brought that up. No, I like
that's part of.
That's why I brought that up. I wanted someone to bring something up.
We pollute our own water constantly.
Yeah,
but no,
like what species?
Take it for granted.
What species does that? Like I'm so confused.
We don't treat like
well,
the
there
water.
are species that are extinct now.
True. True.
We are in the sixth mass extinction.
We're doing pretty good.
It's currently
what's happening. The dinosaurs back.
I was literally saying today. I was like, first it belonged to like the fish and like the aquatic mammals, and then the reptiles took over, and then the mammals, and then next it's probably the bugs, like the insects are
for sure.
Yeah, honestly,
because dude, like
numbers.
Nuclear war, insects survive.
You want to know a fun fact?
And then they're gonna grow and to have this huge society to live and like thrive in. Sorry, keep going.
I was gonna say fun fact about insects. So the entire
there's gonna be more oxygen, so they literally get like 10 times as big because we're not polluting anymore, and there's a lot more.
I can see that happening.
So wait, so step on them? I'm just kidding.
Every cockroach you see,
fucking
dead.
cockroach you see.
You can
so that your predecessors.
You can spend your entire life stepping on cockroaches, and they'll still outlive you.
Yeah.
But if you look at the entire biomass of the planet, meaning that everything that has been created or is currently living as biological matter, 70% of that is beetles.
Wow.
Beetles. It's just anything that's classified as... And beetles is a large category, but beetles alone take up that much of...
70%?
Yeah. Beetles.
God.
Beetles.
Beetles are killing it.
That's crazy.
The Beatles also killed it.
They took over the world as well.
Yes.
For sure.
before all of our time.
Success.
Yeah, massive success.
Just be a beetle.
One thing I did want to touch back on is when we were talking about quarantine and talking about just having those conversations with people and like learning how to socialize. Well, I think that we're on the uptick of all that of the desocialization that we were thrown into into something we weren't used to, and then we re-socialized more into social media, and then we realized, okay, that's fucked up, so we're like desocializing ourselves again from social media. And so right now we're on this uptick again of where like things are starting to open back up, and we're having this process of re-socializing again. But the process of desocializing during this past year and a half has been your boundaries shift, break down, build. Like, we have been reformed as people through the desocialization, and so when we're in this re-socialization period, like, it's just a very powerful time because you're more susceptible to change in socializing than you think. And so there's a lot of characters out there who realize this, and they're trying to sell you a narrative to go with in this re-socialization so that when things get back to normal, you can walk their line. So it's just like, the thing desocialization and moving those boundaries hopefully taught you is that like I need to listen to my own personal dialogue and I need to form my own opinions. And so it's a very powerful time for people going into re-socializing, and then the predators out there, or not even predators, but just people that realize that like they had a good idea and they had good conversations and they have good thoughts. It's why we started this podcast. It's our re-socialization so that we can come together and we can talk about all the things that we know and feel, because we know that's important to us. And we know that therapy is important, and we know that we need to speak to friends and we need to get ideas out. But, and there's a lot of people out there like that, and I'm glad that people at the very least are listening more now. I think we've all become better listeners because we've had to be. We couldn't do anything but listen for a while, and it's just like, oh, so this is what this is like. And
Amen. That was really good.
That was
amazing.
Preach, man. I'm about that.
That's definitely the truth. Gotta take something out of everything.
Facts.
Just learn to love yourself, man. If you learn to love yourself, it's...
And to think for yourself.
Right.
Well, that is always a constant thing, though. It doesn't always stay the same, up and down.
And when it comes to loving yourself, like, you really define what that means, but there are certain foundations that you can create to set yourself up well.
Of course.
Because, like, you can always set up self-love on a chaotic foundation, and it may be exciting because things kind of shake when the wind blows, but eventually something's going to come through to knock that shit down and you're going to be back at square one. That's why you got whatever foundation that you build, like you got to build it on something strong. Like you got to look at the ground, like, and this is all metaphor, but think of it as your emotions. Like you got to look at the ground you're standing upon. You're like, is this a good place that I should set a foundation for my happiness and for my self-love and for my growth, or whatever building you're trying to grow. It's like, don't build it on sand. Like, it'll fucking subside, it'll get weathered away, you'll fucking topple over. But if you build it on just fucking solid, flat ground with hard clay underneath, you're like, all right, this is cool. I don't know. I'm not a fucking contractor. I don't know what soil's best, by the way. Come at me, But I'm just talking about building those things for yourself. Do that, and you'll live a happy life. Because the longer your foundations can stay there on healthy grounds, the better off you'll be to just build a bigger place. Because sometimes we get so caught up in trying to build one foundation, but we just keep fucking it up because we're not making wise decisions, and we stay focused on that for years. And then we're just thinking about that one thing over and over and over again, and next thing you know, we're 35, and they're like, I haven't really done anything with my life. It's like, yeah, because you've been focusing so heavily on one problem without asking for help. Because clearly there's so many repetitions that you can take before you're like, you know what, maybe I need to talk to somebody about this.
You reminded me of a story I was reading today for school that I took a test on, and it's about this girl who loses her mother, and she's like 24. She's a grown person. She's a woman at that point. That's another story. But she's growing, and
continue on with the story, Nick.
She loses her mom.
Yeah.
And she doesn't, like, she rejects everybody. I don't know where I was going, but she has no foundation.
I know what you mean.
She was like running on sand her whole life because her mom was running on sand her whole life. Yeah. Like, she didn't know how to set herself up with it.
Well, and we did talk about that too last time, I think, is like following the patterns of our parents, or at least one of the episodes we talked about following the patterns of our parents and how we act as a result of how we were nurtured. And it doesn't necessarily have to be your parents, it's just the influences you had growing up to teach you what it is like to be grown. So, like, if you know...
That's a good point.
Because we base who we grow into on who's already been there.
That's totally true. I mean, yeah, when I picture like a grown up, I definitely picture certain things that I think of my parents doing. You know? Like calling an electric company to set up the electric bill at our new house.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I was like, what the fuck is that? I didn't know you had to do that. And it's like a grown up thing now in my mind. Like, oh, if you ever have to call an electric company, you're a grown up.
Yeah.
You know?
Because you have to cancel it.
Yeah.
You've got responsibilities.
Yeah, that falls into the what was an adult conversation that we had.
Yeah, but I definitely think that, like, the new generation is always supposed to surpass the old generation. I think the old generation's problem is that they don't want to pass it along because they view them as stupid, and then the old generation before them viewed them as stupid when they were young. So it's like
disrespect.
It's just a cycle of until we like accept that like we have to leave this world to other people. It's not just yours to keep like forever. Like, we can become more sustainable and realize like, yo, this is not just for me anymore, and kind of focus on that.
Yes, dude. All right. So I'm doing this job right now, doing this cleaning job, right? And for this older gentleman, he's like 73 years old, man. But this is the most woke 73-year-old I have ever met. I mean, this guy is up to date on like the latest sciences and like kind of politics and whatnot, and he is very, like, to me, a 73-year-old veteran.
Like, his mind's still sharp as a tack.
And, sharp as a tack, and, like, totally open to, like, gay rights and, like, legalizing marijuana and being, like, really open in those ways.
But not, like, annoyingly open, but, like, logically open.
Just logically open. Just, like, the guy just, like, actually did some research, and he, like, has the latest technology. His wife, who died just 2 years ago, was an app developer. At like 63 years old. Like, these guys are just on top. He worked at HP for 13 years.
He's just never lost his desire to learn.
Dude, that's what I'm getting at. He's like, he never lost his desire to learn, and he kept that going his entire life for 73 fucking years. And I can talk to this guy about video games, and he knows what I'm talking about.
That's nuts.
I aspire to be this guy. But then we can also talk about his all-original 1950s Plymouth that he has tucked in his garage. Like, and he's...
Those
Drop the address.
Dude,
when
for
you maximize the benefits of time, I think that's what you get. Is if you decide very young to not stop learning, by that time, like if you just keep that process and you have a good process going, like you're gonna know a lot of shit by the time you get to 74 because like you've had time to study.
Yeah. He's amazing. I've never met somebody like this, and like if everybody was like that, this world would be a different freaking place, man. I'll tell you what, dude. If our generation's like that, if we can just choose to keep learning for the next 50 fucking years, we got a good fucking chance.
Oh yeah.
But
well, that's
what's on your mind, Annalise?
I mean, I feel like. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
We
I
haven't
just
heard the
think.
Annalise.
Well, that's why I always said that I wanted to. Going back to the old conversation, but I said I wanted to have kids young because I still wanted to like keep in touch with their time and kind of what they were doing. So if they wanted to ask me any question about how to work like this type of technology or help them with their schoolwork, like I'm up to date on how their new generation is choosing to do things.
Mm-hmm.
Because this way I'm not, 60 years old and they're however like still learning and learning new things. I don't want to be stuck like that person that's doesn't know how to work a Zoom. Like they don't know how to is,
Like, dude, we've had a touch screen for 20 years.
Yeah.
Like, you just swipe up and scroll down.
Yeah.
That's it.
I just don't. I want them to be able to relate.
When mouse sales plummeted.
Mouse sales plummeted.
Yeah. Stylist.
I had a mouse
went
guy.
up.
He was out of business.
Yeah, but he went into stylist business and he did fine.
My parents called me stupid for opening a mouse store.
That's really cool though.
Computer mouse store.
Computer mouse.
How he
and then the touchscreen came out.
Yeah.
Because like we blame it on
took it
technology,
around.
but he took advantage of technology.
Yeah, it's like if people like you can be a victim or you can be an opportunist, and sometimes you're both. Sometimes you become an opportunist through being a victim, and sometimes you can be too much of an opportunist and become a victim. It's like there's a balance there, but one does essentially lead to the other, except sometimes some people just stay completely opportunistic and never learn any sort of empathy because they're always just self-serving all the time. And then some people are constantly the victim to where like they're just at the whim of like everybody's judgment.
I think everyone's felt empathy in their life.
No.
There's somewhat.
No, dude. There's
some people. There's some motherfuckers wired different.
Not ever felt empathy.
There's a difference.
Well, empathy is just feeling someone else. Well, that's how you learn as a child.
That's
you have to be empathetic. You have to.
If you feel scared, have you ever walked somebody?
Literally cannot. Oh, I'm sorry.
Have you ever walked by somebody and felt a scared energy, like not because of how they look, just because of something like you feel? But you're like, I feel like it was that person. I don't know.
It's the way in which they communicate.
It could just be something you're thinking. I'm not saying that's what it is, but I really want to say that 73-year-old. Not to get off topic, is like I feel like he beats that perspective of like the system is oppressing us, and his perspective, by the way he lives, is like he's always just like adapt to everything.
Yeah.
Adapt to the system so you can thrive.
Yeah.
Mentally.
Yeah, he's
really cool.
That's exactly. I totally agree with that. Adapt.
See, and that makes me think back to sustainability. Talking about like the 150 in a tribe sort of deal. If you have a solid tribe or group of animals, we'll just say, because we're animals too, when it comes to people that don't follow the system that's set up, like we call them the cheaters. So people that cheat the system for their own benefit. The only healthy amount that you can have is like 1%. So like one individual per every 100 can only be the true self-serving cheater before it becomes non-sustainable. Because 99 people can serve one person who's cheating everybody, and that person's not like getting a greater hierarchy, but like they're stealing to break even so they don't have to work. You know what I mean? But in that group of 100, if you have more than that, eventually the group will start to deteriorate, because one person stealing out of 99 is hard to catch, but when 5 people are stealing out of 99, well, thieves typically get to know thieves. So if one of those people get caught, then they're like, there's a known stealer, and then they're ratting on everybody else, and they're like, well, if they're fucking stealing, I'm going to start stealing, and next thing you know, you have 50% of the population stealing, and sustainability is gone because it's deteriorated because people have done that for themselves. And so like that's it's a hard thing to prevent, especially these days. But to have that was just something I learned in one of my science classes back in the day. It's just like that I thought was really interesting, like when they studied primates and stuff. So it's just like something interesting related to ecosystem sustainability. And one of you guys said something that tied me to that, but I forgot what it was after my rant was said and done.
Usually how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Ecosystem sustainability.
All right, I'm just gonna start talking about ecosystems now. So, like, what about like a desert sustainability?
Is the city an ecosystem?
How is the desert sustainable? Well, the reason it just goes back to foundations. Like the foundation of the desert, like it's all sand. It's very dry. It's very he's going. It's diesel on the lights again.
Just likes the lights.
But the desert's very dry. There's not a lot of nutrients there. Things that adapt to live there.
Oh, goodness gracious! Really? I've done that too.
Wait, are you sneezing because of the dog?
Probably. It might also be the cat hair. That's the one.
You probably have cat on you
I'm
still.
definitely allergic to cat.
If you walked into that house, you have cat on you. But yeah, deserts are dry, so things that live there have to adapt to that environment, and it's much harder to adapt specifically for that environment than it would be to adapt to somewhere like a rainforest, where there's a lot of moisture, there's a lot of nutrients, there's a lot of things you can eat, so you have a wider array of biodiversity in those places. Talking on ecosystems, yeah.
Ecosystem sustainability.
Is the city an ecosystem?
Yes, absolutely it is.
Yeah, it's its own ecosystem for sure.
There's just a lot of debate on that.
Is the microphone an ecosystem?
But the thing about big cities that's interesting is if you're gonna have
is your mom an ecosystem?
Is your damn right she is.
Shout out to Max. You said that. I'm not gonna be the person that just said a joke louder to get the credit.
Hey, shout out to all the mamas out there. You're an ecosystem, baby. But if you have cities, like cities are their own ecosystems. But the thing about cities is like they hardly produce the energy that they need for themselves. You don't have very many self-sustainable cities. Like they have to pull resources from outwards around them and now across the world to feed that many people, especially people with tastes and desires for exotic things.
Oh man, I know. Like cities are rough, but I used to live in New York.
Yeah.
Man, that was awesome. For like a second.
What'd you love about it?
Honestly, the diversity. Dude, like the diversity, man, because like there was every culture in New York City. I mean, like if you wanted some obscure dish from some, I don't know, something that I don't fucking know, but you could find it. You could absolutely find it in New York, and it was like 3 miles away. You know, I mean, it was just.
What's the population of New York City?
I have no idea.
I'm sure it's 25, 30 million, right?
I'm gonna start my chopstick store where we only sell chopsticks.
Made out of fiberglass.
In New York City.
Terrible.
Chopstick store. You better be making some extravagant chopsticks.
I don't know. Would you spend $20? Completely tangent to like $30 on some really fancy chopsticks?
I think I've spent $20 on chopsticks.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
I think that building would actually thrive.
I have shamelessly spent $20
Look,
on chopsticks.
I'm gonna help you real quick.
Awesome.
Cut your business expense in half. Don't make it a chopstick store. Just make wands. Anybody wants to buy a fucking wand because they want to be a wizard. You know, like if you had a wand store, I bet you get business. No. Even if they're not even effective, people would buy wands just to have. They're like, this is my wand. You know what I mean? Just as a centerpiece.
I know people that use wands.
I know a lot of people that have the Harry Potter wands, and I don't like any of them. Like they all just look lame to me. Like
they're just pieces of wood.
My wand would look so much freaking cooler.
I need to whip out my Hermione wand right now.
Yeah, you got it.
Why is that the sexiest thing you've ever said in your life? Please do.
Look at he's getting all excited. His face is red.
Do it.
Jared Diego's about the Hermione wand.
He's gonna be like, baby, put your hair up, put your glasses on. It's about to get down.
We're cosplaying tonight, baby.
We're cosplaying tonight.
Look at him and go, Leviosa!
Leviosa.
Just yell at him like he's wrong. Call him an idiot.
No, my God.
Stupid.
I don't want to get the wand now.
You guys, I might have to stop the podcast early.
Alright, have a seat. We won't get the wand.
I'm just kidding.
Move on.
Wait, no, pull it out.
No.
Why not?
In the most non-sexual way.
Yeah.
You could just get it out and beat him with it. No, he'd like it. Never mind. Alright, so moving forward.
Okay.
Fuck.
All right.
You're talking about New York City.
I was talking about New York City.
Okay, I asked how many people there were. We forgot.
I have no idea.
But you love living in New York City.
A lot.
Well, all right. So I lived on the outskirts of New York City, but I would go to the city a lot of times, and I spent like a few days there a few times. But so I wasn't living like in the heart of the city. But every time I went there, it was fucking awesome. So I wasn't like in the heart of New York City. I was in
Like
Newburgh,
Manhattan.
which was like an hour north.
Oh, you were in Newburgh?
You're in Newburgh? Oh, you do. I forgot. Yeah.
Yeah, I worked in South Salem, North Salem, South Salem, New
Okay.
York.
I don't know.
I forget the name.
Salem.
No.
Yeah, but I worked at this wedding venue in like
Nice.
right over the border of New York and Connecticut.
Oh. How was that? How was that job?
Working working at weddings was the best experience ever.
Yeah.
Ever. Because
What's the most dramatic wedding story?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Let's talk about some unstable
Yes.
ecosystems.
Take a second, because I really want to know the number.
Unsustainable.
I
That's a
wouldn't
wild
say-
job, though.
I wouldn't say
Just
there
seeing
was
that all the time.
anything like super dramatic because I worked like the
Nobody left
So-
at the altar.
we worked at the reception place, but
Nobody's
our
dad
reception
stood
place
up.
was so beautiful that people would have their ceremony there too. So like they had their ceremony and the reception in the same building. And so we've gotten to see people get married, but there was nothing dramatic. Like nothing really crazy happened. We had a bunch of like one of the bride's dads decided to come back like behind the ballroom where we work and just started handing out $100 bills to every server he saw. And so like, but he was super drunk, so he would hand in some people like $200. Like he was just like doubling up on some people. He just went back and just gave everyone.
Some people were
$100.
swerving to the middle of the line, be like, "Hey, what's up, man?" Just keep receiving $100.
I like go through the line and I put on a hat and go through the line and like put on a jacket and go through the
Put
line.
on a mustache.
Put on some glasses, go through the line.
Just talk,
Tommy glasses, jacket, shirt, man.
just talk different.
Super hot fire.
But other than that, it was just such a fun environment because everyone's
Shout out.
drunk, everyone's like having a good time.
$2.
It's just a genuinely happy occasion.
Yeah,
And
this is so nice.
And to get to see like different people's themes and then different people's families, because you'll have some weddings where, like the bride's side of the family are like super tall, really tan people, and then the groom's side are all like really short, like very pale people, and you can kind of just like see them intermingle, and it's so funny. And everyone's just drunk, having a good time. I loved it. It was beautiful.
That would be fun. That would be a lot of fun.
Weddings are a good time. Like, I've never been to a wedding that's like not a good time. Even
Why
if
don't
it's
we
like
throw
even
divorce
if-
parties?
but like even if it's a shitty
totally
wedding,
gonna
like
be
People
shitty
do.
you still find a way to have a good time. Like
No.
Divorce.
no,
It was
bro.
so bad, bro.
If you go to a
I can't
wedding,
even tell you, dog.
Yeah,
no,
look,
it was so bad.
Hold up. Let him finish saying that.
please tell me about this terrible wedding. You're thinking about the
It's
terrible wedding.
so
you're-
bad. You want to know what they walked down the aisle to?
Lay out this whole wedding for us and why it was bad to you, because you really feel it. Like
Yeah.
I do.
yeah,
First
tell
of
us about
all-
the fucking shitty wedding.
Okay. Alright, first of all, I didn't really like either of the people that were getting married, so I
Okay.
had no real good reason of being there anyway.
Why did they invite you? Because they liked you?
That was part of it. My family.
Oh,
My
okay,
sister
okay.
was friends with them, whatever, you know. They were just two crazy people in my mind. Like, two just, like,
Right.
Nut job.
emotionally unstable, you know. Yeah. People that just, oh man, this is gonna be rough. Like, you just know, you know. Anyway, so that's not like the reason why the wedding was bad. It's just the type of people that were getting married. But it had no impact on the theme
It's
of the
connected.
wedding. Yeah. Well, anyways. Alright, so we walked on the island. Oh, sorry. Island in the Sun by Weezer. Like, on an island. I hate that song. Anyways, it's a personal thing. I don't know. Yeah, it was, alright, so this is why the wedding was so bad.
Besides those two
Two
really shitty
families.
points.
Alright, besides all my personal shit that I had also vested in this, which is unimportant, the two families of the people that were getting married hated each other.
Okay.
I mean, visibly, audibly,
You can feel the tension.
they are not happy. It's like the you know, you got the fucking aisle in the center, and like one family's on this side and the other family's on that side, and there should have been like a chain link fence between them. You know what I mean? Like, it was just daggers being shot all over the time. So we go to the reception after the wedding, and it's like in a really, It was just a really
tight space.
Shitty venue. Yeah, it was so small, and it was like in the basement of like a venue.
Yeah.
So have you ever been in like one of those, like if you have like no money, you know what I mean, and you just rent out like the basement of the place,
or the community
but
center.
the basement of the place that has like no windows and like a low ceiling and like kind of smells.
Yeah.
I hear you.
But then it's so
And you got a
cozy.
lot of people with a lot of tension in this small space.
So was
And
this
they smell bad.
The cake was so bad.
Was this-
even with the cake, dog?
Max?
Like it was so bad. Like
Tell us
I'm
how
telling you,
you
man.
feel.
Like
There was a
just
reason-
so bad. And you know what? They're divorced. They're divorced. For
Sounds-
like 3 years, and it's already over. Like all of this.
They lasted 3 years?
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Well,
How long did it last before
it's
marriage?
like, they got married within like 3 or 4 months of me.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah, they
wow.
met each other and they just boom off the bat.
Oh, damn.
No.
Emotionally unstable people tend to draw together.
You know what?
Yeah,
This is,
and
some
then
people do
everybody,
better.
and it was just a bad wedding, dog. Like yeah.
Some people, I've heard
I'm
stories of
off that
people
one, I'm
that
sorry.
get
It's
married
just
like
like-
3 or 4 months in, and like they figure it out and stay together for 50 years. But it's just like I think that was just a different time. I don't see a lot of people doing that today.
My grandparents actually just celebrated their 50 year anniversary, literally like 2 weeks ago.
Right on.
Like, yeah,
Good for them.
Congratulations, Diego's
Thanks. Thank you.
It's like your grandparents.
Yeah. Well, I'm thanking you from them. It's
So
like it's like a blood kind of thing.
Can you just?
But basically, sorry.
I don't know. I want to know how shitty the cake was. That's what I was interested.
Yeah, wait,
Like, why was the
Okay,
cake shitty?
okay, so it was a cake that looked beautiful. I mean, it like looked. I mean, it was actually an impressive looking cake, but it tasted like plastic. dude.
Mortar and
Like, it was-
concrete?
Yeah, I was exactly. And I just like had a whole slice.
Did
but
it
I was
have
like-
that icing that like broke off in chunks, but it wasn't creamy?
It was like, yeah, no, it definitely wasn't creamy.
Like
it
the
was
sugar-
hard.
the hard
yeah.
sugar
Like you
icing.
could almost take it and like peel it off the cake itself.
Yeah, that's the kind of.
But it wasn't like crumbly. It was like It was like
Yeah,
it was
no,
like
I know what you're
flexible
talking
kind.
about. I know
It
what
was
you're talking
it was bad,
She's just standing
dude.
there. She won't come
I know
It
what you're
just
talking about.
tasted. It just tasted so bad. It was
The
just-
only cake I eat now is actually
No
like
redeeming
is like one with like
qualities.
fruit. It's just like fruit and like cream. Those are really good.
Yeah.
Or like pies.
Pies
Gotta love
all
pies.
day.
But
I am a
back
pie
to
guy.
divorce parties. Why don't we throw parties like? I mean, I guess.
It's a strip club.
Well, I guess.
Or
dude,
prostitutes
So I worked
for,
at a
like,
dispensary. I don't want
it's
to talk
unstable
about it.
No, you're gonna talk. Go for it.
All right, I was just gonna say real quick. I worked at a dispensary, right? And you see everybody coming through a dispensary.
Mhm.
I don't care who it is. Your doctor, he smokes weed. I sell it to him. I promise you. All right. So, anyways, the best people are like people that are in like their 40s and they're obviously having a good day. And you always gotta be like, hey, what's going on? And dude, like freaking. All right, not 9. I'm gonna say like. I'm not exaggerating. Probably 6 times out of 10, if it's like a mid-40s-year-old girl and she's in a good mood, she just got divorced, dude. And it's like every time she's like, I got divorced. I was like, no way. They're like, yeah. And I was going, high five. And I give them free joints.
Nice.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, I think divorce parties should absolutely be a thing.
Do you ever
People
see
are
any-
stoked when
Wait,
they
do you
get
ever see any
divorced.
dudes with the same reaction coming in?
It's mostly girls, actually. It's not very many guys.
It's a very interesting
Yeah.
thing to think about when it comes to marriage.
Guys actually like grieve longer usually when they break up with people. Like depending on the situation, but
Well,
from what I've seen,
Did they ever tell you why they got
yes.
divorced?
No, I
they ever
think
go into
the
that
way
shit?
they laid it out
I
was
never
like
asked why.
the
I always was just like, yeah,
Dispensaries
leave that
move
piece of
pretty
shit goodbye, and then wham, like high five.
it was like the first
Pretty.
couple days after the breakup, the girl is devastated, the guy is fine.
But-
And then like a week later, they're both kind of like whatever. And then a month later, she's super happy, moved on, and he's like
Yeah.
super depressed.
That's super accurate.
That's the way they.
Yo, why are you just adding me right now?
I feel like I feel like
That's
yeah,
accurate
it's
shit,
it's
though.
easier for girls
Okay,
to
though.
move on because like, well, it this also depends on who the girl is and who the guy is, but it's like it's easier. Like girls can go out into the world and get that aspect of their life easier than guys.
Well, it depends on how many choices you have in sexual partners too, because usually if you get out of a serious relationship,
Right.
like you've been out of the dating game for a minute, and I know for dudes you just have like it's like nut lag, it's like jet lag, but you haven't
Yes.
nutted in a while.
Yes.
And so it's just like
Exactly.
your regular form of sex has been depleted, except if like before you broke up you weren't really getting that much sex anyway. Just like you're kind of used to the feeling, you sort of move on.
There's
to it that
usually a
way.
dry period before
When
you
there's
break
a
up.
yeah,
Yeah.
unless
Mine was
But usually
different.
when
It was
breakups
the
happens,
it
it
was the
restarts
craziest
you
period.
over.
It was like,
That's why, like, if you're ever going to break up and you actually want to move on from this person, like, I think sometimes just avoiding the breakup sex altogether. Like, if you haven't had sex in 2 months and you're about to break up, like, if you want
there's
to
no way you can
That's true. That's true.
Why are you two just fucked up?
Don't fuck them one last time or they're gonna come back.
No,
don't.
I was literally just laughing.
too.
No, I was literally just laughing at the fact that you said nut lag, and I was like, this man put a word to the time period from when a man breaks up to the when.
Well, it's nut lag and it causes post-nut depression. You get nut lag and post-nut depression, where like you don't exactly miss her. You miss the fact that you had sex with her.
That's why before the podcast I was like disagreeing with you when you were like jerking off and sex with the same releases. Like, fuck are you talking about?
Trust me, guys. I've ended relationships many times, and it sucks. Toot my own fucking horn. Like, I'm a little fucking heartbreaker. I get it.
Heartbreaker.
That's right. But I always suffer from both of those things, and it's just like at first you, especially if you're breaking up with someone, it's because you got tired of something that they're doing, and if you've tried to have good communication, they're not respecting your boundary, you're just not seeing eye to eye, and you're like, all right, this ain't gonna work. You're walking away from this shit, and then that cycle happens that Annalise talked about. But like, the girl's devastated because she likes you for all of the ways you help. And I shouldn't speak for men and women. I think this goes both ways, but you're missing the things that they provided you, the qualities that you needed to be fulfilled. Like, those go away. You're like, all right, fine. And then the dude sort of thinks about, like, I miss these qualities about her, but I hated these qualities about her and they were heavier. And like, over time, the bad shit goes away. You start to remember the good things a little bit. You're like, man, I miss those good things. And then you're like, and I'm also horny. And you're like, I liked having sex with her. Oh shit. And like, now you're in the space of like, well, I can't be a bitch and just text her back because if I do, it's just going to send me down a deeper rabbit hole. So, you know? Yeah. And it's the same for this. This is the same exact playing field for women too. Like, this whole thing that I'm saying. It's just, you got that, because I think women have that phase after a relationship. It's why they get so elated and excited, because they're just like, I'm gonna go out and fuck. Like, you know, they're ready. They're ready.
Whether they're happy or not.
They're ready to get their cutest shit on.
Like the night after we broke up.
See, but like a month after going out in a relationship, he's just jerking off and focusing on trying to figure out who he is.
It's the truth. You're right. All the people that I've done that with, like, or had flings with, where it was like every other night we were fucking, like, we would both start going out, like the past relationship and the past 2 flings I had, like, right when it ended, we were both just like out. But all 3 of those girls, not saying it's just girls, they were out more than me. I was like, every other night they were like, shit, when am I going home? Never.
I know.
Because it truthfully, I feel like it is easier for girls just to get played, because like we're thinking about it more, because it's not like, it depends on the kind of guy you are, but like harder. You know what I'm saying?
Well, no, there's even like scientific studies that prove that men think about sex more.
Every 12 seconds.
Like, you also got to put into the factor that
he's counting.
It depends on how long.
That's like the main study though, like the timing.
Yeah. However long that relationship lasted, plus the impact of that relationship, the relationship had on you. So the impact it had on you, plus the length of time you're in it, is going to effectively have control over the amount of refractory period that you're going to need after that thing's over, before you're actually truly over it. Because if you're in a relationship, like, you process in towards each other and you start to like connect shit together, and so when you break up, like, you have to basically dig through all that baggage and rewire yourself to not be with that person. And so like, the longer you've been in that cycle, the harder it is to dig through those wires. So it's just like, so I think people who are just out of a relationship, especially if it was a longer one, and they're out over and over and over and over again, they're just trying to live. It's a coping mechanism.
100%.
It's just a coping mechanism to think that, like, if they just get under or over enough people, that they'll feel better and they'll forget.
I had to learn.
But at the whole time, they're still thinking about that one person, because they haven't fixed any of the baggage in their head. They're just externally letting it feed them. I
think you're right. I totally agree, because it's like, you want to go back to that place when things were right, because you're touching on that too, because it's like your problems weren't shining there, you know? Because I wrote about it in a poem. It's like, sometimes you have to come together with someone to explode, to see how fucked up both of you are, and you can't talk to each other again, so you can be better. And like, you don't have to show that next person doesn't have to know that side of you. Like, they can know that side of you, but they don't have to experience it. And I think that's like, when we go through all of that, that's how we're supposed to go through our partners, hoping not to go through them to find the right one, but like embracing yourself. Because like sometimes as people, I feel like we have to experience certain situations of our own issues exploding in our face to like actually know that they're wrong.
Yeah.
But that's just how I see it.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I haven't really been in that many relationships, like straight up. I've
only been in a few too.
I've had 5 girlfriends. So like I'm 25, so like that's not that many. Like I've only had 5 in my whole life.
Well, how long were each of those relationships?
Oh man, some of them were like only a couple months. Like, but I count them because like that one was real. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then one of them was 3 years. So that was the longest one I ever had. And this other one, the one that I'm in right now, is kind of a weird on and off relationship that we've had for like since we were we grew up together. So like you kind of start like
I know what you mean.
Like flirting and stuff, and you're like a small teenager, and then you like actually start dating. And I was like 18, and then whatever. Anyways, now we're back together right now, and it's like it's pretty cool because it's like just your friend that you've known your whole life, and they've seen you go through fucking everything together and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, that was very serious. Yeah.
Someone you don't have to tell your stories to because they were there to listen to their stories with you.
Yeah, they were standing next to me when
their memories, not stories.
They've been around long enough to just know who the fuck you are.
It's exactly. They know exactly who I am and to not question anything that I do. You know what I mean? It's like the amount of trust that I have there is intense because I won't get into it, but I've had a really rough life and trust is very hard. Yeah. Very, very hard. And it's something that I think a lot of people in all their lives deal with, because that's a very, being in a relationship is a very vulnerable thing, and you have to trust that thing that you're doing.
Well, the hardest thing in relationships, especially if you have trouble with trust, the hardest thing in relationships is dealing with your abandonment issues that come with the fact that it's usually the reason why you don't trust in the first place is because you've been abandoned in some way or another. Right. Somebody that you trusted to watch your back fucked you over and either left or didn't watch your back and you got fucked up. And like it's trauma, man. It gets in your head. And it's so easy to carry that into relationships and project that onto the other person that like... That's what makes you needy and not attractive because they're just like, you can't leave me or I'll be fucked up. Like nobody wants to feel that way.
I feel like that should be a crime.
Which is what I struggle with. I don't go the needy way. Like I don't go the needy way though. I go like the distance way. I go the like. That's I won't let you get quite that close. It's not like I need you right here. It's like
I know what you mean.
Let you get too into me because like you're gonna fuck me up. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
It's easy for me to have very surface level relationships with people.
But truly in your heart, you want to be closer than that.
You want to, but it's.
So you know how to like make
I'm
not saying like in like a personal relationship but like relationships in general just because of like whatever you said you went through because like I experienced the same thing because of what I went through is like I can like still have a good relationship with them but like I can't let you come that close because of it and it's like I went through a long time of not knowing how to break those barriers until they kind of caught up to me. You know what I'm saying? So totally. I had to like let them down and then like you know when to bring them and like when I let them down and got help for them, and when I brought them back up, they were the right time to bring them up, Because those bars aren't always supposed to be down. We need our fucking weapons.
Well, you do need boundaries, but like when you keep people at a distance, the reason that's not sustainable is because like if you're around that person long enough, like you're gonna want to know them closer. But it's a matter of patience of like allowing that person to let you in slowly but surely. But you and as the person on the other side, you need to feel that they are letting you in slowly but surely, and not that you've just been on this solid wall for an extended period of time and never actually got to know them better. Like that doesn't make people close to you. It's just like okay, like
communication.
I see you at this distance, but clearly you're never gonna let me closer than this distance. So I'm gonna start focusing my energy elsewhere because like. You're pretty set in stone, literally.
That's almost a vibe
it's just too. I like. There are certain people that I know that are very set in stone in who they are, and they're very enjoyable people to talk to. They're very enjoyable people to spend a moment with. But like, I could not live around someone like that, who's like, who could never give me, because allowing that boundary to slowly get closer and closer lets you build conversations with that person. But like, it's easy to find someone who's kind of set in this place and keeps you at a certain distance at all times because your conversations won't vary very much. Like they'll just stay the same. Like it's why people talking. It's why people that watch sports and just talk about sports. Like it's such an easy place to be in because you never have to get vulnerable about yourself when you're talking about sports or you're talking about something crazy. Like it's easy. You can talk about the news, politics. You can talk about any sort of media and just focus on the media so that it doesn't turn around and talk about you.
Yep.
And and all of us want to talk about ourselves, but we're afraid of who to trust to tell about ourselves because we still have these insecurities that if someone knows this thing about me, it's going to affect me negatively somehow.
Well, those few little moments we all have of like cringe, whether it's like us harming ourselves, I'm not talking about like literally physically cutting yourself, but like scarring yourself in any way that like you feel is wrong, or like for me growing up, it was trying to deal with the things I did wrong to people. Literally things that like I did when I was a little kid that I was like, that's so unconscious because I wasn't a conscious person, but it would ride on me. It sounds so crazy, like that's just like one of the few things, but it's so weird. Yeah. It's so weird. Yeah. Like there's so many weird little tics in us that hold us back and make us go about life certain ways that we really wouldn't do if we were dealing with those issues.
Yeah. And we gotta think, going back to the topic here is like, when it comes to any relationship,
spiraled off that topic.
Yeah.
Hard, dog. Wow.
If and it'll all tie together here. So it's just like when it comes to interpersonal relationships, a relationship between two people or even a small group of people is its own ecosystem for sure. And it's just like when we talk about having those walls, we talk about having those boundaries. What boundaries are healthy? What kind of things you need to let down with certain people over certain amount of time, or when they do things to earn your trust. Like if you stay in one place, like, are those relationships sustainable? If you just have people that just meet up for sports and beer and that's the only level of their friendship, like, is that a sustainable friendship? Are those things sustainable? Really?
No. And shout out to all my friends who are now sports analysts in college football. I love you guys.
Yeah, y'all.
But they'll even admit it to me. Our friendship never consisted of anything like emotionally based. Because when I was 16 was when I would like not give a fuck. Like, because you just turn a certain age when you're like, I don't care if I'm pissed off. I'm just saying pissed off. If I'm going through it, I have like at least that one person I can say it to, and everyone else can fuck off. That's like kind of the teenager way to deal with that emotion when you're growing up. And my friends who are like analysts that always focus on media things, they have no really insight into that world, and you see that in a lot of actually podcasters who are media, is like people who podcast hip-hop and things like that, and who are focused on other people's lives, because it's not about them. It's about like everyone else, and that's just like kudos to them because they understand what they want, but it's not my life.
But sometimes people just like all they do, some people are satisfied just having a therapist that they pay money to, and then they just walk into the therapist's office, unload everything on them for an hour, don't really get much feedback, but then they're like, thanks, and then they just leave. So like they dumped it on somebody that would hear it but wouldn't respond. Like there's some people that get therapists just so they can talk to them
and know the right questions to ask to like probe certain
but some people don't even want the therapist to help them. They just want the therapist to listen the whole time so that they can just get it all out and then move on with their lives. But like it's the therapist's sort of job to work in edgewise to like make some suggestions and get the person to listen to them.
You're right, because I told my buddy that because he was kind of explaining to me therapy and how he was going about it, and I was like, oh no, because like the way he was describing it to me, I was like, does she respond much to you? And he was like, no, I just kind of I go and and things like that.
Some people need that though. I needed that in my life.
I had that. Over 10 different therapists, and because I was that person, I was like, thanks, but I wasn't listening to their skills until I met one lady, and she was like, I don't think you should come back if you don't want to listen. And then I really listened to her, and like through those 8 months, it was a really good experience.
See, and that's the therapist you needed. The therapist that would call you out and be like, hey, you don't shut up.
You need to learn to accept help. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And like we all do. Dude, like no matter who we are. Like
I've been to one therapist that like in my life really, and it wasn't even that long. But that woman worked wonders. Like
gorgeous.
It was a totally different experience than what I thought it was, because people are always like, oh, I'm not going to go to therapy because therapy's scary or whatever. And it's like, all right, first of all, it's a really childish view to have on therapy if you think that therapy is scary. If you're afraid of analyzing yourself, you got to...
Well, I think when a lot of people think of therapy, they think of like Sigmund Freud or some shit. Like, they're going to tell me it's part of my childhood sexuality.
Yeah. No, therapy for me was just having somebody that I thoroughly trusted, which was first really hard to attain, but she showed me that I could. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a good therapist clicks with you, because I think a lot of people force themselves to go to therapy. If you just force yourself to go to therapy, drop that therapist. She's not doing her job, or he is not doing his job. That is not a therapist. All right, a therapist is somebody that you can go into and talk to like a friend, and you feel no judgment for, and you feel no, eyes piercing at you. That's not what a therapist is. If you're afraid to talk to your therapist, then that's not the right one. And that's okay. It's okay to drop them and go and find another one. Some people got to burn through 40 freaking therapists before they found the one that actually worked for them, because people are complicated.
Well, that's what I like having.
Different things.
There's certain friends that, because they have such solid boundaries, you'll always find them being honest with you about shit. So, like, those are good people that you don't have to pay. Like, you can just buy them dinner and a beer every once in a while. Yeah. But they're good at listening and just giving you an honest response. But those aren't the people you might not want to be around every day, because, like, they'll call you out on your shit. And you're just like, sometimes I just need people to agree with me.
Yeah.
And, like, that's fair to have that. But it's just, like, I think it's... If you find that person who's just completely honest with you, like, don't let that person go. Like, even if they don't put it in the right way and they're kind of offensive, like... Sometimes that's the way to get you to remember it. Like, okay, maybe I am being a bit of a dick. Like, that's fine.
I have a friend like that. Like, he just, like, after I had a bad surgery when I was 19 and I lost over 20 pounds, he was like, you look like a fucking loser. Like, he's like, I don't give a fuck that you're on medication. I don't care your body's messed up. We're going to the gym. You're going to become a person. And he said that, he's like, you're going to become a person again. And I was like, all right. Fuck.
Yeah.
I was like,
just pushed you in the direction that you needed. Though.
Sometimes you just have to people just need to tell you look like shit.
Yeah. Well, and that's like what I'm saying, because like with my therapist, like she got me. I didn't understand that the point of therapy was just to get you to think about things a little differently. That's it. It's just it's not to change your thought. It's not to say that your end conclusion is wrong. Even you can draw that conclusion for yourself, but you should at least think about it in this way, in just this new light, because you never really thought about it that way before. And make that decision for yourself, whatever you want to do with it. And that worked for me. That was what worked for me. That was my like, oh shit. Yeah. I never ever thought about it that way, and I think a lot, dude. Like, I smoke a lot of weed, all right? So I think a lot, and I never thought about it like that, And it changed my life, like. Thoroughly changed my life. Like, I'm happy now. It's like,
and I think it's why we're social creatures, because we ourselves through living can't see every angle. Like, you got to be able to open yourself up to see other angles and realize that, like, I can't do all of this by myself. Yeah. Maybe I can try, but you come to realize very quick that by like going alone for an extended period of time, like. You're not very happy, and you might find some happiness and joy in other things, but like internally and deeply, like I think all of us who are like, not if you're not a psychopath or a sociopath, something like that, you want human connection. But even like sociopaths want human connection, they just see it in a different way, and but
it's for them.
Right. But just if you are out in the desert for, I don't know, surviving for 40 days or whatever, it's just like. You're going to have thoughts of, like, missing people. You're just like, oh, like, I'm out here by myself and the world's interesting, but, like, I want to have some social interaction. I can't wait to get back to some social interaction. I wonder what I'm going to say. And you start to think about yourself. Like, it's why it's important to take time alone, but don't stay alone forever.
Because then you start going crazy and things that you think are reality aren't reality.
You start to distort your own reality to tell yourself a different story because you're getting bored.
Yeah.
Like...
I totally agree with your perspective, and it's, like, spot on of like what I learned in therapy too is that like so all these because like I feel like I don't know if it was for you guys, but I feel like a lot of people go to therapy because the way they're reacting to life, the way they're reacting to these situations because of other things, and you just learn how to think about those situations when they pop up so they don't distract you from what you need to do at that time or what you love doing at that time, so you can see it as like a great opportunity to like wake up every day.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Okay, dude.
Yeah. Because, like, therapy's not really trying to change you. Like, if you're right, because that's childish. Because if people look at it like that, that's like crazy. If the therapist was trying to do that to someone, you could label them crazy.
Yeah. Well, you'd be resistant to it, because everybody's resistant to someone who's trying to change them. Nobody wants to get squished into a mold.
Well, change
you gotta
is
want
never
to see
comfortable.
the best version of them.
So it's like being comfortable. No one wants to go through change, because change is a struggle, and change hurts sometimes, and change makes you give up things you don't want to give up necessarily, and.
Right, but ultimately, you are the person who's in charge of that. I think that's something that my therapist had me see. Is like, hey, you are the person who's in charge of what you want to do. I'm just providing options.
For sure.
You know, take the option that you want.
What were you gonna say, Diego? You had something?
No, I was just gonna say, so like the only time I've ever been to just a therapist, was actually when back in high school. Yeah, geez, I couldn't even remember. Back in high school, like my senior year, I had a girlfriend whose parents sent her to therapy because she was like rebellious, and like they were just like, you don't listen to us, you're not obedient to us, like something must be wrong, and they would send her to therapy for that. She was also like the oldest.
Hated it.
I'm guessing I've gone therapist.
I've gone to like one session with her. It was pretty cool to kind of see. It was basically them just listening, and just like I was saying before, kind of just probing questions. That's been my only experience in terms of like a therapist. Yeah. So, I don't know, kind of funky.
It's like what I learned about my therapist. I feel like I don't know if it's like you were saying, like communication, but all she was really trying to do was give me good guidelines to situations that I was taking part in, that I opened up to her, or situations that were thrown at me that were not based on me or my personality really. Maybe a little bit of my personality, but more of just like the right decision for the human mind to progress. Because people laugh at that, like, oh, you're an idiot, you don't know what to do in this basic situation. But like, due to the way we're raised, there's a lot of basic situations that a lot of us don't understand, but due to not understanding it, it enhances our other situations, but there's that balance. I know that's a little bit of a tangent, but that's
no, you're good.
I learned that in therapy, and I was like, wow, like that's crazy.
And this lack of balance that we have is like, it's because we're just out of touch. And now I'm tying this back to the ecosystem sustainability. So it's like we're out of touch, and if we were in touch, we wouldn't have as many problems as we have, because the reason that we're out of touch is because we live in a world that is primarily based on consumption. And not only are we natural consumers, which that's innate, we can't stop us from being consumers, but the mindset by which our societies function are a consumptive mindset. So we'll dig and we'll burn and we'll fish and we'll do all these things for the process of making ourselves grow, not only as people, but as our population, as our size. And it's getting warped by the ideas of power. It's like, because if you have this many resources, you have more power, and like that all going back to the marriage that started with marriages. Like that's what marriages were a combining of resources between two or more families to increase one's power, and that has its whole level of corruptive bullshit that you can spend hours on. But as we stay in this consumptive mindset, it was the last page I wrote in my book. You read it. I talk about this idea of we are built to consume, and we consume, and we consume, and we consume, and we do that with one another in our relationships that we have with one another. Is we consume and consume what the other person has to provide until one or both of us have used up what the other has there to give, and then you don't see anything left to consume, so you move on to something else for more consumption, and then that person that you consume from just gets thrown deeply into the back of your head, in some box that you don't look at and try to forget about, while you try to find the same exact process that got you in that situation with somebody else, expecting that it will be better. And so like all of us are guilty of being in that mindset at some point in our lives, and that's some insanity. So if you've never thought you've been insane, if you've done that, that's what insanity feels like, is to do that same thing over and over and expect a different result when you really don't get it. You just get more or less time with each person depending on how much they have for you to consume. And it's just like, that's why people build walls, so they can't get consumed from like that, because they've been hurt.
Well, I think there's some that stems deep. But like, that stems from problems you can't. Sometimes people can't fix within themselves.
What do you mean? Like what problems?
Like
what can you
just like the way some like. I'm not saying everyone, but there's people who have been taking that path you're talking about, like that insanity path of like not changing to where they can't.
Well, sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you don't know
that's why people
to.
go to hospitals because like they don't know how to change, and like not knowing things just makes them go crazy in a room or something. So they put them in a fucking room forever, you know?
Yeah. Some people.
But it ultimately is choice. But like fear is like one of the realest things like that's known to man ever, because it's what's made us and what's broken us. Like war, like we like taking land is like all based on fear and aggression. Like that's how we came upon a bunch of shit.
And greed is greed is tied to fear as well.
Oh, dude, totally.
All of these things are tied on this giant moving wheel of society. And so, like, you can look at it sociologically as this giant wheel, and each rung of this wheel, it's like one of those big old-fashioned wheels that you see on, like, old Western carts that have, like, 32 spokes in them. Well, like, each of those spokes is, like, one thing that builds the wheel. So, like, fear is one, greed is one, the search for love is one, not want to be alone is one, like, interpersonal relationships, like, how you treat your family, like, they're all in there. It's all, like, how you make money, like, that's another spoke, and it all makes this wheel. And this wheel has been built for a while now, and it's turning, and the more it goes and the faster it turns, like, how do you stop that wheel from turning, especially if it's a rogue wheel that flies off and it's just going? Well, we're born as this wheel's fucking spinning, and we're on this path, and we see all of these things, and we are so good at seeing all these fucking problems, but the solution's so hard because we realize to get to a solution we'd have to completely stop this wheel and restructure it, which the pandemic's kind of helped with that a little bit. It's slowed the wheel down enough that we can see all of the individual pieces of it and realize what we can and can't change. But it takes everybody on that board to see the same thing, like, oh, like this is an opportunity for us to become better. And everybody needs to see that. But
we're gonna have a lot of babies after like the masks are really gone. I know that's really bad.
This pandemic could have been the next baby boom, man.
Like,
really
it is.
I haven't looked at the stats, so
I don't even want to.
That's actually.
Well, now here's a crazy thought. Everyone that got together during quarantine, do they break up after quarantine? When they realize
there's gonna be a whole mix.
He's like, fuck yeah, dude.
Every possibility.
There's totally gonna be post-quarantine.
Because then it's like, because those people who are in relationships compared to like someone who's single like me it's gonna be like, oh, but maybe it's just a quarantine. And you're like, dude, it's just a quarantine. I'm back on my player shit, bro. Like two different perspectives, you know. And maybe it's I don't know, bro.
Nah, dude.
I'm just kidding. But love is love. You can't separate true love when it's like that. When that fire is really sparking and it's like on. And it's like burning that fucking tree down, and it's just like you can't separate that kind of love.
And it's fucked up.
You can't separate that kind of love, though. You know.
It's so fucked up to think that like there are people, whether they're not consciously thinking about it, in relationships right now that like they're basically in it because the options are limited and they know it'd be harder to be single. So it's just like whenever, and this goes for both men and women. This is not sexist whatsoever, but like whenever when the masks come off and things are fully open again, and there's no separate tables in between you and the next person, like, and everybody can go back to bars and be ass to dick everywhere, like, you best believe some relationships are gonna get shattered because now there's pretty poon and tang just all over. Not poon tang, poon and tang, just like both of them out there into the world, and whatever you like is just gonna be in front of you, and you're like, holy shit! I remember why I wasn't in a relationship before this started. Like, it's just like, oh fuck, maybe I have a problem with being lonely, and then but they won't ask that question when the world gets back to normal. I think people will be like, okay, it's comfortable again.
The other side though is like the people who met each other and are thriving, and they're like, holy shit, we're like productive together. We're not like crazy about each other when we're not together,
bro. And I think if
that's what I need for my next thing.
Communication,
for sure. Yes, boundaries, but like just like how do you not going crazy over each other to the point where it's like, where are you? I'm here.
Man, you gotta take those rose-colored glasses off after a while and be like, hey, like,
we're just people.
Yeah, we're just people, and like
we like each other.
Do you want to communicate more and like maybe set up a plan here and try try to grow together as people, like that'd be cool. But no, if you just want to fuck and be friends with benefits, that's cool too. But like, don't expect
relationships. Like those are sometimes great.
But like,
you have to be okay with those relationships if you're starting them that they're gonna end, and you both have to look at each other and be like, something better is gonna come along, and we can't deceive each other if this is what it is. We have to know that it's like a nut, and like that personally. This is kind of like for me. What I had to learn is like, if it's that kind of relationship, you better leave after instead of like cuddling with them, because when you cuddle with someone, even if you're like beforehand, you're like, for me at least, you're like, oh, I don't even care about them that much. But if you snuggle up with someone after sex, you're like, you have a different opinion of them. You know?
Yeah. I don't like to snuggle.
Look. Here's the thing.
Snuggler.
But friends with benefits will last longer if you don't do that, I think.
Look, Diego, you know what it's like to have a girl as a friend and just let her keep coming over and eventually yada yada. But we also know two more people that are very familiar to us that act like they're not in a relationship but are. You know exactly what I'm talking about?
We're getting deep.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, you know who it is. Yeah, I know.
So
no naming.
No, I'm fully aware.
But like they're exactly what you're talking about, because they were in a relationship, they split off, and then they just kind of became FBs, some fuck buddies, and eventually they just slowly and surely started cuddling, and now they're acting like they're not dating, but I see them in each other's Snapchats all the time. Just like, they basically spend a lot of time together. So it's just like, this is your girlfriend, this is your boyfriend. Like this is, I mean, you don't have to label it that, but like, you spend all your time together. Don't act like this isn't your significant other. Like, I don't see you posting snaps with anybody else. Like,
no, yeah.
But I think it's like, I think
that's
it's
a better way.
It's not me to jump into your relationship, but like, I can just see that they're not being honest with each other. Like, they're both sort of beating around the bush.
That's sometimes kind of a game. You know what I mean? It's kind of like we're not actually.
But that's the shit I hate. Like,
that goes on for you have to play the game though.
Yeah,
like, you have to play for. My mama told me. Shout out my mama. She's gonna listen to this. You gotta play the game for a while with good women, but bad women just stretch it out too long because they're bad women.
Yeah.
Well, you gotta know. Yeah, you kind of have to know what it's.
He's like,
and this
what?
is why. All right. So I don't know if I want to get into this now, but
fast.
this is why I personally will never get married. Like, I know I will never get married.
This.
I can guarantee it right
Okay,
now.
if you had kids though, still in marriage.
I also won't have kids.
Okay.
No kids, no
Let's
marriage.
hear it, brother.
All right, this is why. Because I don't want to. I'm kidding.
That's
a valid enough reason.
Coronavirus.
Honestly, I really don't fucking want to.
Yeah.
But I also think that marriage, for me and for my life, it's not to say that I won't even stay with somebody for a super long time. I know that my relationships will eventually end because I change a lot. Like, I was an ordained minister at one point in my life. I also deal weed for a living. So, you know, like,
Quite the transition.
Hello, world.
I've had like a life, you know what I mean? And I can promise you that I cannot promise somebody forever.
See, and I think something that's just really interesting about that is there is a defining difference between the man who was first a weed dealer and then an ordained minister to the man who was first an ordained minister and then became a weed dealer. They're not similar people. They're completely different people, but they follow the same path, just flip-flop.
Yeah.
But you can keep like,
and maybe even deep down they are similar people, you know, in the way that they went around it or whatever was just extremely different. And the conclusions they drew were probably very different too.
They both have skills that benefit one another for sure.
Yes, I actually, at the dispensary, I had a priest that regularly bought weed for me, so, and he was totally not, he brought his Bible in all the time.
Fist bump for Jesus.
He was cool as shit.
I bet.
He was a really cool guy.
It's a chill preacher.
His last name was Light.
I like an edible in the name of God.
I was like, he was just a cool guy, man. He'd get an ounce every time. He'd get a full ounce. And I'd see him probably once every 2 months or so.
Play phones in the back.
He'd come in and buy a full ass ounce of weed and take it to, I'm not gonna tell him where, but.
Yeah. Well, that's a conversation that's come up multiple times, is like, are marriages things that are sustainable? Because marriages do have particular constraints given their nature, and I think it truly depends on what you define as your boundaries within your relationship. But
it's just temporary.
That word is so funny.
It's always
it's like. I'm sorry.
Okay. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was done.
No, you go ahead. All right, fine.
Boundaries. That's not a word we talk about a lot. Like besides like in sports.
And then you just get cut off.
That word, like if we said it a lot, would
Well, I think
like this dude's still talking. Alright, I'm gonna talk.
I think too.
I'm retarded.
No, you're good. It's fine.
Like whenever you think about marriage, like there's so many different types of marriages that you could have. And it's just like the marriage that we think of that as a legal binding contract. Like that stuff's tough to maneuver because like it's hard to put your name down on something because it's kind of like selling your soul to something. But there's plenty of marriages that you can have like where you can just do it with that person, a couple of friends, like wherever you want, and like you can just be married amongst yourselves. Like you don't have to sign a paper. Like because who's really ever gonna fucking question like if you're like, hey, this is my wife, they're gonna be like, let me see your fucking marriage certificate. You know what I mean? And if they do, it's like fuck
I would
you,
only
dude.
do it. I would only do it like, and in this world you have to keep renewing it constantly now because the laws have changed. But I would only do it if I had a kid, just because I would like. It sounds stupid, but you like I grew up with a kid who like you see moments where people like make fun of people for that shit.
Yeah.
And like I just don't like. I know that's stupid. Like the kid will get over it either way because he'll learn your perspective and see it's a good life.
Right now.
You know, but like I don't know. I would just do it so like I don't know. It seems easier.
Yeah.
But I was also raised like by my family like don't get fucking married if you don't have kids.
Huh.
Like,
oh really? That was the thing that they said.
My parents wouldn't have.
My uncle,
like why? It just makes everything harder because it's like then you have to focus on the prenup and like
oh man,
you know, in the back of your mind it's like we got to keep it going.
Yeah.
So like our money stays.
People change, bro. Like just like what I'm saying. Like people change.
People want sustainability.
And
like,
who are you to hold them back from that?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like don't
it
hold
sucks,
me back
but like
changing.
you have to.
I'm gonna change. I know I am.
Yeah.
I think the biggest problem is that we exist in this spectrum of generations, and each generation has its own mindset, but they're just overlapping all the time because the new generation gets old enough to mix in, and they're just constantly mixing. So it's these ideas just built on each other.
I feel like people that get married should love each other, like actually love each other, and what that means is accepting the other person regardless. So if you can find someone that will accept you through all your changes and just love you for someone that wants to grow and experience different things in life and loves that about you, there's no other reason to find someone else. Do you need a legal binding contract? No. The only reason that marriage is even like relevant at this point, instead of two people just committing to each other, one is like a legal document of just like it's a security blanket in case this person runs off with my shit. Legally, I know, like legally I can take action, and it'd be super effective. And for like tax benefits, like people that are married and have families, get money off their taxes. It's like if you contribute to society, we will take money off the amount. We will reduce the amount of money that you owe us, like just for living in our country. God bless America. But it's just this super funky cycle. But kind of like to what I was saying before. Keep going. Go.
No, I don't want to.
Oh no, I was just saying, just tied to kind of what I was saying before. The previous generation is always supposed to surpass or the next generation is supposed to surpass the previous generation.
Right.
So if you're not marrying to either better yourself and thus producing, healthier and happier offspring, or to better them, like why are you getting married? And is it like a dependency thing? Like what's going on that makes you want to do this? Like you have to break your own bad habits prior to entangling yourself with somebody else, and obviously that's hard. And the more you're with someone, the more problems they're gonna draw out that you like. Oh shit, I didn't know this about myself.
Yeah.
And just tying it all back into like if someone accepts that for you, that you're constantly growing and changing, and knows that like you will have your ups and downs and loves you regardless. That is what a marriage should be, and not this over glorified, tax benefit.
Yeah, that's some bullshit, man. I'll tell you right now, if you got married for tax benefits, like you might want to reconsider.
But if you're married and you mutually are both doing it honestly for the tax benefits, like that's cool, man.
The first time someone said that word,
I take back what I said. I take that back.
Marriage. No, you're right. But like, marriage should be. It's okay if it's a mutual agreement. But some people aren't just completely honest and don't know really what they want, and they just kind of follow one way or another. So like, somebody's like, they'll try to sit down and have an honest conversation. Like, hey, like these are the reasons I want to get married. Like, what are the reasons you want to get married? And sometimes they still kind of hold a little bit of rose-colored glasses for that person, or they don't want to see themselves without that person. It goes to your like dependency thing. Like they'll bend the truth or flat out lie about what they want from marriage, and then once they're in the marriage, like it's slow, those walls slowly break away, and like, I thought you wanted this thing when you really don't, because like now that I'm around you all the time, your actions are saying a different thing.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's the trap a lot of people get sucked into, and that's why you need to learn how the person that you're choosing to spend your life with, like how they communicate, how honest are they with you, how often do you have to like talk to them about a certain thing, about disrespecting this or that, or like, and how often do you listen to them? Like, you have to take yourself into account too, but realize all these things, take these steps and learn, like, do I really want to marry this person? And I think that takes like a good couple of years. I think it takes 4 or 5 years at least to figure out, like, because you know,
and you gotta live with them.
I had someone look at me and like,
you don't know somebody until you live with them, man.
Yeah, someone tried to.
That's the one thing about marriage that I wouldn't want to live with my significant other until I had to. And like, when I get married, that's when you live with them, because like it adds an extra layer of bonding. I think while dating, you should always live separate, because it gives you time.
Like, what if your future wife, right, and you never lived with her, but you didn't know, but you know what? This is a great thing. Long hair, what you do in the shower, it can't go down the drain, right? Mm-hmm. So you take it from the drain and you stick it on the wall, right? And I forget it every fucking day, bro. And there's a glob of Max's hair, or your wife's hair, on the wall every freaking day. Do you talk to her about it? You're like, this is fucking gross. And if she argues, she's like, dude, I'm absent-minded and I'm high, like a lot of the time, and I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. Well, there's two ways you can go about it. You can discuss it and be like, okay, I'm gonna put this thing in the shower, and you're gonna put your hair in this thing. Can you do that for me? And then you're like, yeah, that's fine. Okay. That's agreements. Those are mutual agreements within relationships. And if you have a good enough partner to compromise with you enough to be like, okay, I get that your hair clogs a drain.
No compromise. Like, no compromise.
Right. Compromise. And that's why people. And if people can't compromise, they shouldn't get married, because when you're married, it's a way of learning compromise.
No compromise. Compromise is a bad word. Cancel that word.
You just see compromise when it comes to the idea of sacrifice. I see compromise when it comes to changing perception for the growth of the relationship.
Yeah, it's
but that's not sacrifice. But you connect. But we talked about compromise. Yeah. You don't like compromise because you connected to sacrifice.
But the word compromise itself means you are sacrificing something.
No, it doesn't. Well, compromise doesn't mean you're sacrificing anything. Compromise means you're coming to a mutual agreement.
And
when you see mutual agreements, you see the sacrifice you make to make that mutual agreement happen. But you're not getting everything that you want.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, because if you're not getting everything that you originally want, you are settling for something else.
We changed the word sacrifice to alternative solution.
Yeah. No. We changed compromise to alternative solution, because those are two different things. A compromise is, like I said, involves sacrifice. An alternate solution.
It's true. It's not wrong.
Yeah.
But compromise is an alternate solution.
Yeah. Well, an alternate solution is just a better form of, this works for you just as much as this worked for you. Let's make this idea happen.
Well, but an alternate solution is not always. Well, I think sometimes compromise is necessary. I will say. I do think that, and I do say this because if you want to wake up, let's say you want to wake up at say you can work from home, you have a great schedule, a perfect life, the ideal life, right? And you want to wake up at 11 o'clock every day and stay up until 3 in the morning every night. And your significant other is like, no, that is just I cannot live like that. I need to wake up at 7 in the morning and I need to be in bed by 10 o'clock at night, right? Like, say you're on two totally different schedules. Both of you are gonna have to compromise a little bit, or you're never gonna see each other. You're gonna see each other 5 hours a day, and that's not gonna be a sustainable relationship. No. You're gonna have to, you're gonna have to go to bed 2 hours earlier. You're gonna have to go to bed 2 hours later, and now
from an outside perspective and from all my relationships, there's compromise. There's compromise with my mom, my friends.
For sure.
I'm not saying you don't have compromise isn't something that is
you just like alternative solutions better.
Well, I'm not saying like compromise is bound, like you said, bound to happen. It's going to happen at one point, because at that moment this could be the best solution possible. And it could not be what both of you guys want. I'm just saying we shouldn't focus, we shouldn't use compromise as a benefits, or relationships, better from compromise or stuff like that, just like that word, because no one should have to sacrifice anything to get a better solution. So is compromise going to happen? Yes, it's inevitable, but it's transitioning from viewing everything as a compromise or, just settling to, like, let's actually both try to be as happy as possible. It's just, like, a different kind of, like, attitude, like, kind of...
Yeah. I think you're just seeing it in a different light. It's kind of like the same thing, but just in a different light.
Yeah.
Yeah, I dig that.
Let me ask this final question here. So, in order to get to a sustainable ecosystem, or as when we think about our environment, we can think about what we're doing as a human species. Do you think that's going to require compromise? Do you think it's going to require sacrifice?
Yeah,
to get to the place where we are environmentally
because people will have to change what they do now to meet this
new demand.
This new idea of this is what we're going to. Like, people will have to shift. Will it be what some people want? Absolutely. Will it be what some people absolutely hate? Yeah, of course. But that's just a balanced world. You're going to see both sides of every single argument every single time. Exactly. So some people will have to compromise.
Yeah.
But those that don't view it as a compromise are ultimately just those that are happier in life. They're like, this is what's meant to happen, whatever, kind of thing that they tell themselves.
What do you think
that's what I tell myself all the
is,
time.
Though? Like,
define
word by word, because, like, I'm pretty sure we've
talked about it before.
We all compromise, like, it's unavoidable.
Yeah. I'm not in. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying
it is a thing in, like, reality.
Yeah, you have to, especially as a child. You compromise all the time. You do what your parents say. It's not what you always
Uncle
do.
Sam?
Yeah.
We compromise.
Taxes, people compromise all the time.
It's coming to a deal. Like, and every deal is different, and that deal is based on the perception of the people making it. Compromise is hard to define because it's a very interpersonal thing.
Yeah. What I'm saying,
we're signing off, Tommy.
Well,
10,000 bodies in the water.
What I'm saying is, in a relationship, like, the use of a compromise should be done as little as possible.
Right.
And finding different solutions to better a solution. Like, if they're like, hey, I want to do, bowling tonight. Oh, I kind of want to go to the movies. Mm-hmm. Like, it's like, well, let's do one today and one tomorrow. And, like, no one has to sacrifice anything.
When I think of the word compromise, like, I think you don't take compromise too literally. It's like you have to physically sacrifice something. Yeah. But it's just like, when you're compromising, what you're really sacrificing most of the time is you're just sacrificing one idea to replace it with another.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And whether you want to see that as like this ritualistic sacrifice of an idea and put another one in its place, or just reshaping that idea to make it fit. That goes
swapping of ideas. So let's just come up with a different something that incorporates both.
I guess we're kind of beating a dead horse here.
Yeah, exactly.
To switch the topic a little bit about what you brought up, you were an ordained minister at one point in your life.
Oh, it's a whole
I think what we're going to do, we're going to say that.
I just want to sound that out because that is going to come up again for sure. If you don't mind talking about it.
No,
sure. Cool. Yeah, we'll be happy to have you on again, man. That was a fun conversation. Do you have anything, Max, to plug for yourself or for anyone you love that you want to represent? Do anything like that?
Shouts out to my girlfriend Jasmine because she is fucking amazing, and also, I don't know. I think that's pretty much it for now.
Peace, love.
Sweet. Does she have a cleaning business?
That's right. She does have a cleaning business. If you want to get your house or business cleaned, call Jasmine or me, Max. I'm not putting my phone number out there or anything.
All right. Well,
just call my name into the wind.
You know what? Just
go outside and call Jasmine.
All right.
Well, in a week she'll show up.
If she has a website or anything, you can feel free to give it to me, and then I'll post it in the link, and then people can, if they need cleaning in Fort Collins, they can hit up Jasmine. But
I will clean your house,
folks. Show, and he'll tell you stories too.
Oh, I will.
Nick, Diego, you guys have anything to plug? You guys have anything you want to put in?
Same thing. I'll just slide everything.
All right.
Much love.
Always love.
Passed out for like 5 minutes. So that's okay.
Nice.
That's pretty neat.
No one noticed, I don't think.
I didn't. Did you really fall asleep over here?
Kind of. I was talking in the middle of it.
He was just passed out, eyes closed.
It was that point where it took me a really long time to say my point. That's when I was like, oh fuck, it's happening!
It's happening!
But peace and love.
Peace and love always.
And you guys know me, you can find everything about me that I have on singularityimages.com. Not hard to find me there. That link will be in the description below. Other than that, yes, much love. Thank you for coming back to the 5th episode of Finding Home. I hope you guys liked the intro music that was made by myself, Max, Diego, and the whole Finding Home crew. We'll try to be playing that, getting on all the videos from now on, so you have a little tune to jump in with us on. rather than hearing me yell at you. All right, love you guys. Talk to you next time. Bye. Alright, and welcome home, you beautiful and greasy bastards. We're happy that you're back. This is Finding Home, where we're open, vulnerable, and shameless about all the beautiful God damn it. The topics in our beautiful little wooden bowl. I am Seth Gorman.
Hey guys, I'm Diego.
Annalise.
Your boy Nikki P.
And today we have a very special guest on. Introduce yourself, good sir.
What up, you guys? My name is Max. That's all I got.
Do you want to share your last name?
Oh, Battaglia. I'm sorry. My name is Max Battaglia.
You trying to sell yourself in the world?
I'm like Cher, actually. You can just call me Max.
There's many of me out there.
We got Mad Max in the room. Awesome. Well, we're glad you guys